Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there tonight, and I appreciate you folks joining me tonight as we discuss and talk a little bit about the weather throughout the rest of the work week. I'm expecting some pretty active times. I don't see anything that screams severe weather outbreak by any means, but we do have a slight risk for kind of the same areas over the next 48 hours. Really talking about Tuesday and Wednesday. Confidence is a little bit higher on what could potentially happen tomorrow, which is more so a conditional threat. Wednesday looks like a damaging wind and big time hail threat. And then we need to talk about the rest of the week, which could bring some severe weather for areas of the deep south. Florida could continue to be pretty active. And then I'm watching, and we'll talk about this towards the second half of the video, spend a little bit more time on it. A system that it definitely needs some work if it's going to happen, which we don't want it to work out, because if it does, there's a storm system that looks almost likely that's at least going to be around, some kind of low pressure. But is it going to speed up? Is it going to slow down? What I'm trying to say is we need to watch, I would say, Sunday for severe weather along the eastern U.S., maybe the mid-Atlantic, the upper southeast portion like North Carolina, Virginia, kind of the same areas that saw it this past Saturday. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk more on it or less on it depending on how the models trend, because I know there is a lot of people who tune in from that region, and it's certainly a more highly populated area. So with that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. We're rounding off. At least we're getting close to the end of May, and I appreciate you folks that continue to tune in. It's certainly been it's been the most successful April since starting my channel in 2020 for sure. And part of that being just all the active weather we had right at the beginning of the month. But I appreciate people who continue to tune in as we kind of enter that slower time of the year that I've been talking about. And I really appreciate people who have joined the channel, who've donated to the channel, and just continue to just view. I really appreciate y'all folks. So if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it. It gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rolling. National Weather Service watches and warnings. It's going to be another chilly night for portions of the Ohio Valley, the mid-Atlantic interior sections of the mid-Atlantic, I would say, the Appalachian Mountains, where you could get below freezing. I'm not expecting, areas to get deep into the 20s by any means, but certainly some upper 20s are possible. And these higher elevations can get quite chilly. This pink area you see here in Florida, which will be, by the time some of you folks watch this, it'll be gone, but there's a severe thunderstorm. Watch out with some warnings ongoing, just some active weather that will continue to be a big storyline over the next couple of days in Florida. But let's go on and talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow is a weird day, and I'm not one to disagree with the experts by any means, because they're the experts and they know more than I do. I know a lot of people like to come on here and say, I tune into you, I don't even trust the locals anymore. Please don't ever lose trust in the locals. And I say that because, guys, they only get a limited time to talk about the weather. I can jump on YouTube and talk about it until the cows come home just because I can. And I guess technically they can too if they start their own YouTube channel, but you get what I'm saying. I would cut your local guys some slack if you're that person that says, I don't even trust my locals. And I appreciate that. It's very nice of you guys to say y'all tune into me instead. It really means the world. But with that being said, I have some disagreements with what the National Weather Service's Storm Prediction Center is saying for tomorrow for Texas. They got a slight risk up right here in the heart of Texas. All the way to almost Wichita Falls, the Abilene, the Waco, Austin. That includes Dallas, Austin, pretty much to San Antonio. Marginal risk that stretches all the way from the southeast corner of Colorado all the way to the southeast Texas coastline. You got another marginal risk in Texas tomorrow too, and I wouldn't be surprised one bit if this gets upgraded to a slight risk, kind of like what happened today. So tomorrow they have a risk of tornadoes. There's a 5% risk in this brown area to see a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. So it's something we need to watch out for. To put this in perspective, this was the same risk that we had in Oklahoma last week when we had that big-time tornado south of Oklahoma City. Okay, so I'm just not buying much of a tornado threat tomorrow in Texas, and I'll talk about why here in a second. But I could be totally wrong, so I'm not telling you guys to get your to get your guard down by any means, but I'm just saying. I'll talk about why I think that here in a second. But you got a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. You got a 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in any given point. And you have a 15% risk of hail, and 1 inch or diameter or larger within 25 miles at any given point, but you also have that hatch risk, a black outline region for tomorrow. That means you also have a 10% chance to see significant hail, which is 2-inch diameter or larger. So let's talk about what the latest HRRR model is saying for tomorrow. We'll start off around, let's back it up a couple hours. We'll start off around 2 p.m. tomorrow. If you're confused about what time frame we're at, look at the time right here and back this up 1 hour. This is set in Eastern time, so back this up 1 hour, it's 2 p.m. So this will be 2 p.m. Notice there's not a whole lot going on by early afternoon in Texas. You got some activity up in Oklahoma where there's not much of a cap. It's an uncapped environment. There is some capping down here in Texas. And any new viewers or just people who've been confused about me talking about what a cap is, it's basically an area of dry, warm, stable air in the upper levels of the atmosphere, aloft, meaning above our heads. That means that you can have all the fuel to the atmosphere, all the players in the atmosphere for thunderstorm development that you want below this area of stable air and above this area of stable air. But if the cumulus cloud cannot build, if the clouds cannot build, if the updraft cannot build past that area, then basically it decapitates, if you will, that growing updraft, therefore prevents storm development. So this will be the case for a lot of the afternoon tomorrow. But what we will watch for is for some thunderstorm development. You know, this is down here in south central Texas, you know, kind of close to the Austin area, getting close to State College. So we need to watch out. I always get confused whether to call it State College or College Station. I get Pennsylvania and Texas mixed up some, but you guys know what I mean. But we'll keep this going here. We're getting into 8 p.m. You're thinking, Mitch, well, what am I seeing here? Well, there's not a lot of thunderstorm development. That's why the Storm Prediction Center is calling it a conditional threat, not a super widespread threat tomorrow, I don't think. But I think that's why you do have a slight risk, because it's conditional. That means any 1 or 2, 3 storms that can get going could be isolated. If it was an uncapped environment, you would have an explosive amount of storms. They were all kind of congealed together. It's not the case tomorrow. So what I'm trying to say is you could get 1 or 2 storms that kind of break free and take advantage of all the atmosphere players in the atmosphere. And when you can get 1 or 2 storms that do that, they kind of have breathing room to really grow and to kind of grow into their own, if you will. And I really think we will have some stormy few hours tomorrow evening in Texas, and this portion of Texas right in here, okay, which is, you know, well northwest of Houston and north of Corpus Christi, but south of Dallas-Fort Worth area, okay? And we keep on going. We're getting into about midnight, stormy times in Oklahoma, but I think you're lacking a lot of ingredients for any significant severe weather up here, but you could have some. But, you know, by the time we get into tomorrow night, to the wee hours of the morning, Wednesday morning, it's pretty much over. And we still have ongoing showers and storms that could last all the way from late tomorrow morning all the way through tomorrow night into Wednesday morning. Could get a flooding risk in this region. Okay, so we'll watch out for this for sure. So, but, you know, based off what the HRRR model is saying, it's not screaming a big time threat. Okay, one thing I want to look at, which is, you know, a great thing to look at when you're trying to figure out a tornado threat, is this low level jet. Winds at about 850 millibars, which is about, give or take, about 5,000 feet up in the atmosphere, about a mile up in the atmosphere. So we look for these more highlighted areas. So you got a little bit of a 20, 25, 30 knot low level jet right over here in west central Texas. You keep this going, and I mean, we get all the way to about, at this point, I mean, we're about late in the afternoon around dinner time. And at this same time frame, you got storms ongoing right into here, but there's pretty weak winds aloft. I mean, you don't have much flow. You got a better flow a little bit higher up than this, but a pretty weak flow aloft. Now, you move a little bit further west into the heart of Texas, you got a little bit of a 20, 25 knot low level jet, but there ain't much spin to the atmosphere. So that's why I don't buy much of a tornado threat tomorrow. If anything, I would say that you get some spinners up here, but they're going to be elevated. So there's not going to be much of an attachment. There's so many players that go into severe weather, guys, but I don't know, unless this changes, unless they're just probably not buying the short range models. They're seeing something that maybe I don't. And that's why they're the experts. But I'm just not buying a huge tornado threat tomorrow. And it's not a huge threat. It's a 5% risk. But based off what I see, I would honestly leave it at 2% chance. But watch us get about 3 or 4 tornadoes tomorrow and prove me wrong. And it's certainly a possibility. So, but, you know, the one thing you'll look at is dew points in this region, and what do they look like for tomorrow's events. And, you do have some moisture building into the region, especially in deep down in southern Texas where the moisture just has remained. But, not a ton of moisture. I mean, you got dew points well into the low 60s, upper 50s. So thermodynamics are not super supportive. But normally when you have dew points kind of low, that to me, that indicates that there's cold air nearby in the atmosphere, cold, dry air. So cold air aloft, what does that normally mean? It means hail. So that's why if any storms do get going tomorrow, which I do think they will, you could have some large hail wherever they form tomorrow. So I want to mention Texas. Here we go, calling Florida, Texas. I want to mention Florida tomorrow. We're going to have another afternoon with some big-time storms. And I would watch out southeast Georgia, too. In fact, I would not be surprised if they extend the marginal risk by the time we wake up tomorrow morning into Georgia. Could have some thunderstorms. One quick thing I want to tell you guys. I bought a DSLR camera, which is a pretty high-end camera. It's a Canon Rebel SL2 EOS camera. I bought it about 3 years ago when I started my journey with YouTube, and I've yet to figure it out. So I was at work today with some downtime, and I've been trying to figure this out. I have a passion for photography. I've just never done it. So I kind of threw that in there because I would love to have some pop-up showers and storms up here in the Midlands of South Carolina. I'm trying to learn my camera because this fall I really want to go into the mountains and take some pictures of the fall foliage. I love what I would say the majority of the weather community who do what I do know photography, and it's definitely a passion of mine that I want to that I've never pursued. So I'm going to take some proactive measures to try to figure that out. So any tips for any photographers? I really would appreciate it. It's a nice camera. It's an older style camera, but it's still nice. It's still worth a lot, and it's still a valuable camera. I just need to learn it. Let's go back to the weather. You know how I like to get off track. We got about 4 p.m. Bang. I would say around 5 p.m. Storms explode here, and basically the heart of Florida. There could be some big storms up here in Savannah too, in southeast Georgia, even in the low country of South Carolina. But I will say Gainesville points south. Anybody's at risk for some severe storms tomorrow, especially I would say the eastern portion of the peninsula, basically the east coastline. Basically the central to eastern portion of the peninsula of Florida could be under the gun for some strong to severe storms for sure. So watch out for this. It's going to be kind of like an identical day as what's happening right now, what's been happening this afternoon in Florida. And then we'll kind of watch this as these storms kind of drift away by the time we get late in the evening. And then we lose the daytime heating, and then we're done. It's pretty much summertime in Florida now. But we get into Wednesday, we have a slight risk of severe thunderstorms again for even a larger area. And this is a little bit further north, I would say. This goes all the way to the Red River, all the way over to a very small section of southwest Arkansas, Shreveport, Louisiana, all the way back to some of the hills of Texas. And then we have another marginal risk for Florida again. We're going to have another day of strong to severe storms possible. But let's talk about this. I would say, and we can only look at the long-range HRRR model and the NAM. This is the furthest out, the 48 hours out that we can go in the NAM. And it does show storms beginning to fire, still raining up here in Oklahoma. You guys could pick up a lot of rain. We'll talk about a little bit. It's kind of stinks, but I can't pull it up on the fly. But you folks in Oklahoma could get a good bit of rain over the next 48 to 72 hours. We'll talk about that tomorrow morning. So hang with me there. But some storms are just getting going around 1 p.m. on the 48 hours out on the long-range HRRR model, which is as far out as we can go. But if you go and look at the NAM, okay, start off Wednesday morning, we'll get into Wednesday afternoon. It shows a line of storms developing. I think this is going to be a damaging wind, large hail threat. I don't think there's going to be much of a tornado threat with Texas Wednesday. I think there will be a small one. But I really think that you'll have a brief period, a brief opportunity for these storms to be supercells. But I think quickly, if it doesn't even just flat out start out like it, it's going to turn into a linear mode. So you're going to have a line of storms that sweeps through North Texas, Central Texas, and we'll take it all the way out the 78 hours out. I would say sometime around anywhere from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., you could have a line of severe storms that makes its way through the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And these will swing through northeast Texas sometime late Wednesday night into the overnight hours. And we'll see what it does after this when we get into another day or so, when we can get a little bit further out in these range. But we'll certainly watch for this. I can tell you the thermodynamics will be better for Wednesday, meaning better dew points, probably some higher CAPE levels. I think CAPE will rise well over 2,000 joules per kilogram in this region. So there will be a lot of fuel that builds ahead of this developing line of storms for Wednesday afternoon. So I think the entire central, especially eastern portion of Texas, you guys could be under the gun for a big-time severe threat. I got to stop saying big time, but a severe threat, damaging winds, some significant hail is going to be possible Wednesday afternoon in this area of Texas for sure. And then eventually late in the evening, get all the way to Louisiana and then maybe southwest Arkansas. But we'll certainly give you a better update on that here in the next 24 hours, even into tomorrow. I do want to mention Thursday into Friday for the Deep South. And really all I can mention here is we'll start off Thursday morning. There's a lot of moist air hugging the Gulf coastline. It's just waiting to kind of get pushed northward. So we're getting into Thursday afternoon. It does get pushed forward. Okay, so you got a big time moist pool of air all the way into Tennessee, covering up all of Alabama, Tennessee. I say big time, but dew points well into the 60s. It's going to be humidity that you can certainly feel. So in response, you look at things like the CAPE levels in response to these dew points. I might have pulled that up for no reason because I might have already had it on the next frame here. But in response to these dew points spiking, you are going to have some fuel to the atmosphere. You got some CAPE values over 1,000 joules per kilogram, pushing 1,000 up here in Mississippi and Alabama. But there's no shear. There's no real big-time winds aloft in this area. So I think that this is going to be more so some hail potential, maybe some gusty winds. But I could see a marginal risk of severe storms being introduced for the Deep South by tomorrow morning for Thursday. I do think we could have some strong storms Thursday afternoon. And even as we're getting into, let's see what this shows now, even as we're getting into Friday, I think we could have some more stormy activity. Maybe for Georgia, southern Alabama, even into South Carolina. Friday could be a stormy day for Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama. We could have some storms. You look at, let's go back to the moisture, see what the dew points look like in this region. Always great things to look at. And yeah, you get into Friday afternoon, you got dew points surging well into the 60s into Atlanta, Greenville, Spartanburg, Columbia, Macon, Charlotte, all the way up to Raleigh. So you got an atmosphere that you certainly need to watch for some severe weather. And if you actually look at the precipitation map on what this could look like, we're not in short-range models at all. Already looking at Thursday, look at all these storms along the Gulf coastline. Could be some stormy days coming up for the Gulf coastline. Talking about Louisiana all the way to the Panhandle of Florida. And then we take our way into Friday morning, very stormy or just rain showing up. There could be some more storms that fire up sometime Friday afternoon, Friday evening for the Carolinas. There's a lot of things to figure out. I think each day is going to be its own weather day, which it always is. But I think what I'm trying to say is there could be some changing situations for Thursday and Friday. We certainly need to watch out for that. Next thing we'll talk about is the fact that, yes, Friday is going to be a washout, I think, for areas in the mid-Atlantic, the southeast. There could be a wind-driven rain with a low pressure flying across areas of Tennessee and Kentucky into Ohio. This could be strengthening, could not be, but in this case, it looks like it is weakening. But could be some rain, a really rainy Friday for the entire southeast. Especially the mid-Atlantic for sure. But then I think Saturday might clear out for a lot of the eastern U.S. And then we watch Sunday. Here comes another low pressure. Okay, this is already bringing a lot of showers and storms for Georgia, the Carolinas, potentially Tennessee. But we got to watch the placement of this low pressure. You got a 992 millibar low pressure early Sunday afternoon, riding the spine of the Appalachian Mountains, and it picks up a lot of speed and strengthens as it does. It goes from the southern Appalachian Mountains, this low pressure, all the way almost up to Erie, Pennsylvania in about a 6-hour period. So to me, with this low pressure really close by, remember what we talk about, and normally south, southeast, or east of the low pressure, you have severe weather. So where does that take our severe weather? from early Sunday afternoon to Sunday evening, somewhere in this region right in here. So I want to watch this region right into here for some severe weather for Sunday that's not being talked about a whole lot, except for us locals here in the eastern U.S. We've kind of talked about a little bit on Twitter this afternoon and earlier this morning, me and a couple people, but we need to watch because you look at the dew points, they surge ahead. This is very fleeting, meaning these storms have one quick 6-hour period, I would say. If you were to look at models as if they are right now, you will have a pretty brief period. Now, if this is to back up, if this system is to slow down at all, like 6, 10 hours, 12 hours, there could be a significant severe weather event for Virginia, North Carolina, maybe even South Carolina for Sunday. If it speeds up, then that means this moisture, this sector of very moist air, which in response you have higher CAPE levels in response to these higher dew points, would get pushed a little bit further east. So, it would be a fish storm, meaning you would have strong storms out in the Atlantic Ocean. But I would watch this area right into here. You got a lot of dry, these are dew points, not temperatures. You got a lot of dry, stable air following behind this very quickly. But you got a sector that builds right into this area right before this low pressure heads to the north. It's going to be close by. You will have a lot of forcing, and you got to watch this area Sunday, I would say. If it does end up popping off, I will chase Sunday. I've already made up my mind. But, Sunday afternoon, here we go. We got the CAPE levels rising in and around the Myrtle Beach area. 1,000, 1,500 joules per kilogram. They begin to rise somewhat in eastern North Carolina, Virginia, right around that 1,000 joules per kilogram range in certain areas. So you got to watch. But one thing I am watching is this low-level jet. I think we could have a big wind event for the eastern U.S. Sunday. With a strengthening low pressure, these are low-level winds, meaning winds, 4 to 6, 7,000 feet up in the air, but with a 40 to 50, 60 knot low-level jet in these regions, right in this area I'm watching. Okay? These are going to mix to the surface, which means I think you're going to have widespread 30 to 40 mile per hour winds somewhere in the eastern U.S. or in a lot of places in the eastern U.S. for Sunday. I think it could be a big day, just active day in general for Sunday for sure. So, last thing we'll mention here is rain between now and May 1st. If you haven't seen a lot of rain from these systems, this could be where you make up some ground. The Panhandle of Florida, into the Carolinas, Georgia, anywhere from 1 to 2, maybe 3 inches of rain is possible. Find your state. This is not a forecast, just a blend of all models, but certainly some active times ahead, guys. But that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. And when I say active, I'm not meaning like outbreak material or anything like that, but I think each day is going to warrant some kind of concern for any given location. So that's all I got. God bless all y'all. Have a great evening, and I'll be with you in the morning. God bless.